Welcome to the Common Thread Radio Show. This show is dedicated to discussing tough issues that affect today's society, like indifference, bullying, prejudice against race, creed, color, preferences, gender, and national origin. The purpose of our show is to find a commonality that we can all agree on or accept. Now here's the host of the show, James Kelly. Hello and welcome to the Common Thread. I'm your host, James Kelly, and my guest today is Dewah Toeque.
Perfect.
All right. And we're going to be talking about cultural differences. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is there's a young lady in the room with us. We don't see her. She's not on camera. She's taking pictures. But we were talking in the green room before you arrived about cultural differences. And this came up with someone else I was talking to today. Where is your family originally from?
West Africa, Liberia.
But you were born in America. You were born
in South Central Los Angeles.
All right. And the person I was speaking with earlier today was born in South Africa, and he is white. And the reason we brought this topic up today is because he was telling me how he gets so tired of people automatically saying, if you're from South Africa, in his case, they would think that automatically he wasn't born there because he's white.
Right.
When he gets very frustrated with that. Asia is a young lady who's in the room with us today. When we were talking about this, the picture that comes into your mind when you say Africa is always black.
Yeah.
And you always think of tribes people.
Yeah, not me, but yeah.
Well, I know you don't, but the point is
Right.
that most people in America do, though.
Yeah, which is bad, but yeah.
And I want to talk about this today because even with your background, it's automatically given, and we also talked about this, is that you are identified as African American and I'm identified as white. But why? Because you're American. One of the points I'm trying to make here is that by doing that, we actually are saying that America is white. Because if you have to identify yourself as African, I don't identify myself as white American. So why do you have to identify yourself as black American? Or why does someone who's from Asia have to identify themselves as Asian American?
This goes back to the Reconstruction era in America where black people were trying to take back their identity and take back ownership of claiming who they were. Because back then, they called them the N-word, other things other than what they were, which were black people or Africans, even people that were descendants from Africa. So it's more so of a control thing, of an honor thing. Like you want to feel you have some type of ownership of who you are, of your identity. Because a lot of these black people, they don't know where they're from in terms of Africa. Like they were taken from Africa. Some of them were dropped off in Brazil. Some of them were dropped off in South America. Some were dropped off in Mexico. Some were dropped off in America. Some went to Canada. Some went to England. Some went to Germany. They went all over the place. That's why we always say the African diaspora, because the African diaspora means that if you're a black person anywhere on the planet, you're African in our eyes. So recently, which I've been noticed because I work as a journalist and as a marketing person, I'm always finding information to see what's going on in the black community and what are people younger than me thinking about being black and what is blackness versus whiteness in America and how are we operating as black people in America and what are some of the issues that we're facing. So within the black community, we have a thing called colorism. Colorism comes to play is if you're a black person and you're of a lighter hue, you are closer to whiteness. So whiteness is something that's made up. There is no white culture. You're either German, you're either from Spain, England, maybe even Slavic. But when America was trying to gain power back in the 1940s, they say, you know what, if you're Irish or you're Italian, now you're part of whiteness now. We're going to say you're white. They made up this new term because they wanted to boost their numbers.
Because he did used to refer to people as Italian American.
Correct.
And there are Italian American clubs here in America today, or Irish American.
Correct.
And that's what I want to address, because if you're Asian, they say Asian American. My point is, why do we have to do that, though? Why can't we just say I'm American? If someone's talking to me about their friends, I cannot tell you how many times my black friend, my Asian friend, my Hungarian friend. Why? Why do I need to know that? I might not even meet you. So why do you need to point that out to me if I've never met you before?
Well, it depends on the individual. So I wouldn't say my black friend, or I would just say my friend. But some people have unconscious biases they don't know about. So they'll refer that person as this friend and put their ethnicity or their race in the conversation when it didn't need to be added there. And that's something that they need to deal with on a personal level. So that's why it's important that going forward as a society, we have to really come to terms with how this country was formed and where it came from. That's why I'm a big pusher for the 1619 Project. What that does, it educates everyone, especially children, on how this country was formed, and educates children and adults if they're willing to learn about what is it to be a black person, what is it to be Native American, how was this country formed, who were the most prominent inventors in this country. Like a lot of stuff that we have now, we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the blood, blood, sweat, and tears of black people. Like for instance, vaccines. Vaccines wouldn't exist if it wasn't for a black man. A black man told white people, hey, if you guys take a little bit of the virus and you put it in your body, in a healthy person, your body can build a strong immune system to fight that virus. So if you go out in the world and you try to get it, you'll be able to fight it. So just us not knowing these stories and knowing these individuals, it keeps putting black people in this mindset where they feel like they're not good. And then it makes it where some black people want to get closer to whiteness, so they'll do things to even sabotage their own people instead of just accepting that being black is okay. Saying you're black or saying you're African American, like me, I identify as Liberian American. My parents are both Liberian and I was born in America, so I'm Liberian American. So saying that, it brings honor to my parents and it also lets me know who I am, and it puts me in a space where now I can start building on top of that, and I can even inspire other children that are growing up that are Liberian and they don't know who they are and they're here in America. So they see me and they say, oh, this guy, he's a politician, he's also a business owner, and I'm inspired by that. He identifies as Liberian American, so I feel proud to say I'm African, because growing up, when you're African, they'll make fun of you. Like other black kids will make fun of you because they'll say, oh, African booty scratcher, all these different things to make fun of you. And it's like, okay, because they themselves don't know their own history. So they would just attack your history because they don't know theirs, because it's insecurity. I look at it like this. If someone is attacking me, they're projecting what's their own insecurity on me. And if I accept it and it triggers me, then I have to learn to look at it for what it is. It's a projection, and just not so much get angry, but try to help them understand what they're doing wrong instead of me get upset too and then two people are upset. So I'd rather just have a conversation with them if they're willing to have a conversation with me and we talk about it.
But isn't it the same though for all cultures though? I mean, if you're Hispanic, wouldn't they feel the same way? Or if you are of an Asian descent, wouldn't you feel the same way?
Yeah, I've heard it from even Asian people. So there's Asians that I've talked to that have come to this country where their parents were born in a different part of Asia and they're now Asian American, and growing up they've been attacked or being Asian. Like recently during COVID last year,
right?
They were running around saying, oh, you guys brought COVID to America,
right,
and attacking them. I'm like,
probably 5th, 6th generation.
Exactly. And they don't even
never been to China.
Probably never been to China or never been to any other country, or not even Chinese. They're probably Vietnamese. Because of people's ignorance and not knowing about culture and also respecting people's culture, they then always make people the other. And that's a big problem for me. If we're having a problem like at the scale we're having now, we have to stop making people others because we don't know what the problem is. We have to look at what the problem is and keep it there, not let our unconscious biases come out and we start saying crazy stuff.
But Dewah, I kind of think that's what I'm getting at, is that it's okay to relish our heritage and celebrate our heritage.
Yes, it's very important.
But at the same time, I don't quite understand why if someone introduces themselves, they have to say, I'm this or I'm that. Why can't they just say, I'm American? America is not white. America is a multicultural country. We're from every sector of the world. So that's America. That's the true face of America. Because I'm of 4 different cultures. So, I mean, I obviously have to identify as white because that's what I look.
Well, you don't have to, though.
No, but the point is
because there's a lot of people like...
But on those charts where you check off what you are...
I met people... Well, there's always boxes where you check multiple. I've met people that will tell you all the different stuff they are, and they identify as all of them. And they also are ingrained in all those differences. I personally want people to stop identifying as whites. I want people to identify with their culture. Because if you identify as white, you're basically trying to ignore all the rich things about those cultures. Like German culture is amazing. British culture is amazing. Italian culture is amazing. So if you're for those things, say all 4.
But my point is this. I get that if you want to celebrate your heritage, but when it comes to saying who you are, why wouldn't you say I'm an American?
Well, American is just a landmass. It's not a country unless the people are there. So
I think here's my point. If you're in Great Britain and you're black in I've never heard anyone say I'm African Britain. I've never heard that. I've been to London.
I've had, like my uncle, he has children that have been born in London and they identify as a Liberian British or Liberian English. And that's just, they want to respect their culture. They want to know their culture and then know that, yes, they're in a country that's not their land, but they're still going to uphold their culture, because you don't want to forget traditions. It's important to remember those traditions and say them out loud, because then you have children going to hear it and pass it on. But we just stop talking about who we are, and just because we're living in this country, we can't just forget who we are.
It's not about forgetting who we are. It's just that oftentimes I think I hear people use it in a derogatory manner.
How so?
In the sense that they forget about who I am or they forget what I represent. I understand what you're getting at, but sometimes people can use it in a way that sounds almost negative.
How so?
By the way they're saying,
Give me an example.
When they say I'm Black American, it's the way it's presented.
I'm a Black American, I'm what?
Like, let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
Well, it's like, for instance, if they're saying it in a way like, you forgot about who I am, in writing, for example. It's like, there needs to be more diversity in this. And when you're pushing it hard, instead of just going out there and doing it and bringing attention to it, there's a a difference in bringing attention to it in a positive way and pushing it on someone.
But that's the thing that we have to stop doing. We have to stop trying to tell people how they have to show up for their coach. So if they're saying it a certain way, we can't say it looks negative. That's just how they're saying it. We have to just accept it for what it is. Once again, that's our own insecurities that we don't know about because someone said it a certain way and it triggered us. We have to just look at why am I feeling this way when someone said this and address that feeling and not so much what they said. If we get comfortable with addressing our feelings and addressing that feeling inside of us, we're going to be better listeners and even learn something from that person that's telling us about
Maybe I didn't say it quite the right way. We never have discussed this until now. Okay. And I have multiple friends who of different cultures. We've never had this discussion like this before. But there are some people I have met that every time you speak to them, they constantly push this.
Push what exactly?
The fact that I'm African American, I'm being ignored. Not just African American, but I'm just using that as an example. And I'm thinking, do I need to hear this every time I meet with you? If I'm going to have a conversation with you, every conversation doesn't have to be about this. When you're friends with someone or you're an associate with someone, do you really think that that needs to be a topic every single time?
Well, yeah, think about it. If I took you from your land and I put you somewhere and I say, hey, I want you to work this land for 100-something years, and then once the laws change where I can't force you to work that land for a certain amount of years, then I say, okay, cool, now you're free. And then I say, you know what, I'm afraid that you being free is going to take away freedoms from me. So now I'm going to create these Jim Crow laws to where you can't even move in certain areas. You can't sit somewhere for too long because that's illegal. You can't do this. I'm just going to make up something to make it harder for you to figure out who you are. Once those laws get taken out because they're unconstitutional, now I'm going to dictate where you live. So I'm going to create laws where I'm going to redline and say, only you can live in this area. I live over here. And then when you start getting in power and you start protesting, you start learning about the Constitution, how you have the right to protest. You start protesting that, hey, I'm this person. This is who I am. And now I'm going to say, oh, you can't protest this way. You got to protest this way. So you have this force over you constantly telling you how you have to navigate in this country where in actuality, we're both even.
Yes.
But for so long, I've been in control and I've made you feel like you were lazy when in actuality, you built everything. So if I did that to you, and then when I talk to you, you always bring up your past because you've never had a chance to talk about your past because I've been always telling you, you have to do it this way to make me feel comfortable. It goes back to what I was saying before. If I have a person, it's about trauma. That's what it is. If someone is constantly bringing something up to me and I feel like, why do I always bring it up? It's probably because I wasn't probably listening from an empathetic place. So they feel like they have to keep bringing it up to me. I always take responsibility. What am I doing to make them feel like they have to keep bringing this up to me?
I'm thinking one person in particular. This person doesn't do that with just me. It's a mantra with this person. It's constant. And I think sometimes what they fail to understand is that we hear you and we want to talk about it, but not every single time. You know, if you're a friend with someone or you're an associate with someone, that should not be a topic every single conversation.
But is it every conversation though? But even if it is, it's okay. Because you gotta understand, this person has had trauma.
So what you're saying is recognize what they're going through.
Always recognize. Because when you recognize, that goes back to the trauma. Because trauma can be in our DNA. It passes on.
Okay, very good point.
So if I'm not acknowledging what they're feeling, and if my group of friends are not acknowledging it, and we start taking offense, like, oh, why do I always bring it up? Then you're not trying to deal with it. You're just saying, this is too much. I can't deal with it. They bring up too much. Well, they're probably doing it for a reason. So maybe I need to listen more. Maybe I need to listen differently. Maybe ask more questions and then talk about it with them. And then maybe they will realize, okay, I don't have to talk about it on their own. Instead of me feeling like, why do I have to always bring this up? This is too much. So as a society, we have to start listening from a place of understanding the person's trauma instead of from a place of, oh, this is like, I understand this is what happened to them, but can we just move on?
No, I don't mean move on. Maybe that was just one example.
Yeah, I understand. We're just riffing right now.
Right. But the thing is I think that sometimes people it's almost like overselling it to the sense to where you tune it out. It reaches a point of where you want to tune it out, or you don't want to invite certain people to be around because that's all you're going to talk about. And I think it's great that we have open conversation. That's why we do this show. We need open conversation.
We have to.
And I have been listening
especially
to
now.
But the point is that in society, when you're communicating in society, I think communication is very important. So you also have to see both sides of that. Like, am I overselling this, or am I really trying to push this too much? Like, how far am I going with this? You need to let people absorb. I believe that you should always introduce things in a subtle way, and that you should introduce it as much as you possibly can, but not to the point of shoving it down someone's throat, as they say.
But that's, once again, that's your perspective. So I always look like this. When it comes to matters of trauma, I'm not going to tell someone how to present their trauma. If I'm not ready for it, then I say I'm not ready for it. But if I want to be their friend, or I want to understand them, if you want to yell, scream, and I think that's probably because I was into psychology for so many years. I studied different techniques, and I'm always learning different terms. And what I've learned is you you have to be an empathetic listener, and be an empathetic listener is sometimes it can be straining. Sometimes just hearing someone telling their story, and they may repeat things during that same story, but by you just giving them that time to talk, that's healing for them.
Okay, I get that, and you're probably right there. I want to bring up 2 examples. Okay, I have a friend who works in Hollywood who is African American, and he has never had a problem securing a role. He's never been looked at as a black man because when he goes into an audition, he goes into that audition as a person.
See, that's wrong.
Is it?
Yes.
Because when he does that, he changes the mind of whoever's there. Because let's just say, for instance, they're auditioning for a white character. He doesn't go in there as a white character. He goes in there as a person.
So that's the thing we have to stop doing in this country, on this planet. We have to stop saying, I don't see color or I'm a human. At the end of the day...
You don't think that person can change the perspective of the person who's... I happen to disagree on that one. I think that you can.
The reason I say this, because Hollywood has a problem right now where they're not doing enough to show the spectrum of this country. And this has been a big problem. There's the Oscars So White, a big hashtag that happened a few years ago. So apparently they're all about, okay, this is what's been selling for so many years. We don't want to change it. It takes too much work.
Right.
But that's the point. We have to do the work because everybody needs to feel representation. Because there's a little boy and a little girl out there that's watching a movie or watching a show or watching something on YouTube, and they want to see themselves. That way they get inspired, get into that field later on. Like there was a really cool photo of Kamala Harris being sworn in, and this little black girl put her hand on the screen when she had her hand up. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. And some people may say, oh, that's identity politics. I call it just representation. Everybody needs the space to say who they are loudly and not feel like it's a bad thing to say who you are. And for years, we have been silenced for saying who we are. We had to change our hair. We had to change how we talk. Even the way black people talk, we have a certain way of speaking. I said that was ghetto. But that was how we communicated with each other because it was shorthand. It was just a quick way to speak. And it was real smooth.
And oftentimes it was phonetic.
Yeah. And now people have realized that that's an actual communication. Courts now have to start changing how they document conversations with people because it can be used, like in the Trayvon Martin case, the woman that was testifying about Trayvon Martin's death, the stenographer felt that what she was saying, because she said it in her slang, she didn't seem educated. That doesn't mean anything. My history teacher years ago, he was in college. He had a friend that was very smart. He would talk, I guess kids now are calling it AAVA or African American.
Ebonics is one.
Yeah, but there's a new term that people are using now. It's called AAV or whatever it's called. But anyway, the teachers put up a math equation on the board and he said, can anybody solve this? And he says, oh, that's a dub. And the whole class started laughing. And the teacher was like, he's actually correct. That's 20. All because he said a dub, you guys laughed because he's using slang, but in actuality, he's giving you the correct answer. But because society says this is not how you speak, it's not okay. So we have to get away from those blinders of having this is the only way to do things. That's why I love science and I love mathematics and physics, which my dad is a physicist and a mathematician and a chemist, and he always told me there's multiple ways to get to answer a problem. So that's how I approach life. I've always said I can't look at people as one way and just have this idea in my head about what a human's supposed to be like. And when I meet a person that's not the idea in my head, I start judging them because they're not an idea in my head. I have to get rid of the idea in my head, and whenever someone comes with me at their culture, I want to learn about their culture. I'm coming to the mindset of, oh, this is cool. I've never seen this before. Let me learn and ask more questions versus, that looks weird. I'm going to start to talk about this person. Well, why are you doing this way? Why are you doing that? That's why a lot of Africans, when they came to this country, even growing up, we didn't want to take our food to the lunchtime because kids would be like, oh, what's that? Oh, what's this? Like recently on TikTok, there's a food in my country in West Africa called fufu. So there's like these challenges saying the fufu challenge. And Black Americans were eating fufu and like someone was saying it was good. Someone was saying, oh, this is nasty. We never told you to try our food.
Right. And that actually, to me, is a form of prejudice.
Well,
it is. If we look at a culture, yes.
See, I'm glad you brought that up right now too. So recently I've been noticing some white people have been trying to start calling black people racist when the word racist means power. Racist has always been misdefined in a dictionary. Now recently they've updated it, which I'm glad they did. So racism is all about structure, power, and absoluteness.
Okay.
So black people have been operating in this space of racism and racist systems for so long that they've had to navigate like they're walking on eggshells. And now we're starting to say, you know what? I don't want to walk on eggshells anymore. I want to be unapologetically black. And if I look a certain way, if I say certain things, it shouldn't be a problem. That's where we are right now in this country. And I'm happy about it because now we can start to celebrate instead of feeling like I have to hide.
But don't you think that everyone should have a way of communicating without hiding feelings or prejudices? Let's just face it. Every person on this planet is prejudiced about something.
They're prejudiced because they were trained to be prejudiced. That's why we have to...
Prejudice is all
something
training.
we learn.
So
that's why we have to teach people about accepting other people's culture. cultures. Once that's ingrained in all levels of society, from the sciences, from fashion, from the government, from regular jobs, if people all know that there's different cultures and you respect someone's culture no matter what, no one's gonna have a prejudice. We're gonna become not prejudiced but curious. We're gonna be curious about other people's cultures. We're gonna be like, ooh, what's that? People are gonna be accepting to talk about their cultures, not afraid to talk about it because they're gonna be ridiculed for it. That's the problem we've had for so long.
So going back to the original question, so you don't think that we should identify ourselves as just American?
No, we should, whatever you want to identify as. Even when it comes to sexuality, people should be able to identify whatever sexuality that they want because that's their personal thing. And we have to just accept it and respect it because it's a spectrum. Culture is a spectrum. There's so many different cultures. There's so many different tribes within, right now there's 54 countries in Africa. In my country, we have about 12 different tribes within our country. Each tribe has a different way of doing things. Each tribe respects other tribes. Yeah, sometimes they bicker with things, but we all respect each other because at the end of the day, that's someone's culture that they decided. So you can't tell them that's wrong. Not your place.
Right.
We have to just respect it, and then you'll learn something. It may help you. That's how most African tribes operated before Europeans came in. We just were all about communication. We're doing this in our tribe. You might want to try it, make things easier for you. This is how we grow this. Cool. We're going to do the same thing here. But when you come in and you think that your idea, because it helped your people, is better than someone else's thing, you're pretty much saying that you're superior. And no one is superior.
That's right.
We're all the same. So if we just learn from a place of respect and understanding, it may cause us to have to remember a lot of stuff. But now we have technology to help with that. We can pick up our phone. If I want to learn about the Mali culture, I can type it in and I'll learn about the Mali culture. If I meet someone from Mali, or if I'm about to have an interview with someone from Mali, I'm gonna learn a few things about them, and then it'll make the interview better. Instead of me going in and operating from a place of whiteness and saying, okay, so whiteness is easy, I'm gonna tame myself down so I can assimilate. No, I'd rather be myself. It's gonna be a conversation piece. Cool. Now we have more stuff to talk about, more things to learn about each other, and then we connect more. And tell you something, it was so disgusting. This man walked into a convenience store and he started attacking the clerk and saying racist things to the guy, all because the guy is different. Him as a white man, he feels threatened that something's being taken away from him, but like nothing's being taken away from you, bro. That's an insecurity that you have to deal with yourself. You need to talk to someone about how you're feeling and why you feel like something's being taken away from you because someone that you saw and that was told to you as a kid that this person's lower than you, and now you feel like, oh, because they're rising, I'm losing. No, you're not losing. Now you have a friend that's on the same level as you, and you guys can share stuff with each other.
And you just said what you said earlier. Prejudice is taught.
It is. So
you're not born prejudiced.
No one is born prejudiced. No one is born racist. But we have been living in the racist for so long. It's like a fish in the water. White people don't know that they have racist biases because they're like a fish. A fish doesn't know it's in the ocean until you take it out of the ocean.
I'm going to correct you on one thing you just said.
Please.
You keep saying white people.
It's
all people.
No. White people. I'm saying that I'm being very focused. White people have been taught for years that they are superior than everybody.
Oh, yes, in America.
No, everywhere.
You think everywhere?
I know this because of my research. So there's a documentary you should watch. It's called Enslavement. Enslavement breaks down that every single thing that Europe has gotten in America and South America, the way everything operates, it derived from a few men deciding, you know what? We want to control this planet. We're going to go out. We're going to sail. We're going to go to countries that we have never been to, and we're going to barter with these people there. And if the people are not at a level that we feel is okay, we're going to take their stuff. And they did that for years. And they taught their children's children that that's how it's supposed to be.
All right. So let's take that premise that you just said. Okay. I would say you're talking about 1% of the population.
No, the entire population.
Not the entire
Whiteness,
population.
okay, you understand. So whiteness is a virus in the brains of everybody. If you're white, you don't even know that it's a virus in your brain. If you're black, you feel it because when you walk outside, if you're Latino, if you walk outside, if you're Asian, if you walk outside, if you expose or show anything about yourself from your culture, it's going to get tamped down to say, no, you need to be more like this superior. For years, black women could not wear their hair to wear it because they felt that they couldn't get a job. They couldn't get anything because their men were in prisons because of the 13th Amendment, which said that, yes, we're freed, but if you commit a crime under the control of the House and the Senate, by punishment, you will be a slave. So if I go to jail, if I was to go to jail today, I will be a slave again, just instantly, because slavery never ended. All they did was they modified it and said that we're going to have prisons are the new form of slavery. So by me known as a black person, I'm going to make sure that no white person is uncomfortable around me so they don't call someone and then I'm looked upon as this thing. We have to start dismantling these systems so that way I can feel comfortable as a black person to walk aside and not feel like that's going to happen to me. As a white person, them knowing that, they should say, you know what, those systems should be taken away so they don't have to feel like they have to act weird around black people too. If we all realize what we've participated in this whole time, we can start the healing process. We're never going to heal unless we realize whiteness is not a thing. It's not even real. There's no white people.
That's what I've been trying to tell you.
I know, but I want to be very focused and forceful with it, because some people, when you say whiteness or white is not a thing, they then say that, okay, then black is not a thing. No. Black is a thing. White is not a thing, because white people have showed everyone on this planet that they have been in control since day one, and what they say goes. But in actuality, they don't know what they're doing either. No one knows what they're doing. When you're born, you don't know anything. All you know is what you've read in books. So if the information that you're getting is not the full story, it's not just affecting you as a white person, it's going to affect me as well. If I don't tell you the full story of how this planet was built and your ancestors kept it from me, they know someone helped them, you're going to be handicapped now. Because now, when you start doing it, you're not going to see the results that your ancestors knew, because they had a secret they didn't want to tell you. So now we're both blind.
So you don't think that there's an upper echelon that even tries to control the white sector of society? I disagree on that.
See, it's literally us. It's people. It's ideas in our heads. I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I literally have been, there was a topic that came up to me. It's called cognitive distortion.
Okay.
Cognitive distortion, it breaks down into several different ways. So you have blaming. So blaming is one of the cognitive distortions. So instead of you take responsibility for what you're saying, what you're doing in that moment, you start saying, oh, it's because he's black, that's why he feels like he can say the N-word and do all this stuff. No, he's saying it because there's certain things in the culture that he's trying to take power back from, because back in the day, he was called that for so long, he's now trying to take it back and say, no, I am not a...
I get that part.
Yeah, so that's one example. And then when it comes to black and white thinking, if you're operating in a space of whiteness, you think that if it's not this way, then it's that way. No, it's a spectrum. So we can't just say black people are monolith. So if a black person is talking this way, then they're not educated. That's a blanket statement. You have to do more investigation. You can't just say, oh, because they talk this way, or even a white person. If a white person does this, all white people this way. No.
That's what I heard a while ago, though, is that not all white people are the same.
No, because if you say you're white, you're pretty much saying that you accept.
You're hitting on what I'm getting at. Why do we have to identify ourselves as white? I'm not just white.
But you're not white at all. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay, and that's my point.
You say you're 4 things. What 4 things are you?
Dutch, Irish, English, and Cherokee.
Then that's what you are. You are Dutch, Irish, English, and Cherokee Indian. That's what you are.
So I'm not going to say that every time.
But you have to. I know you may feel like, oh, that's a lot, but that's the point. You have to be proud enough to say, these are the things that I am.
But I have friends that have 12 different cultures. I'm not
That's
kidding.
fine. Yes. But that's the problem with our planet. We've gotten to a place where we want to simplify the human existence. We cannot. The human existence is so...
I like what you just said.
It's so complex. That's why we don't know how the brain operates, because we're trying to say that, oh, things are simple, but the brain is the most complex thing. So why do we think that we're going to understand the brain if we're thinking that you're just one thing? It's not the case.
Because the majority of the population, certainly in the United States today, they're multicultural.
Yes. Everybody's multicultural. No one... I did a DNA test myself. My country, Liberia, it's a new country. It was formed because the free slaves went to Green Coast. They went there and they established that this is now Liberia. But when I did my DNA test, I'm Sierra Leonean, I'm Nigerian, I'm Egyptian, I'm part Congo. I'm mixed with like 13 different things. Talked to my mom about that. Like, do you know your grandmother's grandmother? And she's like, not really. Because that area that we were born in, that was a very popular port. A lot of people would come in and out of that area because it was a beautiful port. So people that were either selling slaves, they would come in, do some barter, and then leave.
But the way you said you were Liberian when you introduced yourself.
Yeah, Liberian American. That's the culture that was established. The tribes, people said, this is our tribe, the 12 tribes. This is our land. And now we're going to say we're Liberian. And that's what I go by, because that was what we established. That's me showing respect to my ancestors. Instead of me saying, because when I was younger, I used to be ashamed to say I was Liberian because I was teased for being African. Or they call me African booty scratch. They make fun of the food I was eating. I ate palm butter. All these different things, try to make fun of it. So now that I've gotten older, I learned what was really going on. I said, oh, okay, so they didn't even know that they were trying to get close to whiteness by attacking me.
And that's another thing. Why do people feel like they have to?
Have to what?
Get close to whiteness.
Because the system of whiteness, the way it's set up, it says that for you to be successful on this planet, you have to act like a white person, which is not a thing in any regard in the first place.
Right.
So it's a few men that decided to go out and leave England and other countries and say, you know what, we want to have power. So by having power means that I have other people do stuff for me while I sit back and do nothing.
Answer me this question. Mm-hmm. Why is it if you know someone who is an African American and successful, oftentimes people people of African American descent will refer to them as, they think they're white.
Yes, because...
But they're not. They're just living life. They're just enjoying the pleasures that they deserve.
But they are. Because you gotta understand something, brother. This Constitution in this country was not designed for us. It was designed for a few white men. It didn't even care about white women or black women, especially not black men. It was designed for a few white men. So if you said you were white, you could have all the fruits of this Constitution. Right now, if you're Egyptian and you come to America, when you come to this country, they say you're white, even though Egypt is in Africa. They say, as an Egyptian person, if I want to get citizenship in this country, they're going to identify me as a white person. There was a man in Chicago that said, no, I'm African.
No, but I'm talking about, let's say, for instance, I'll give you an example. When I worked for the post office, I had a supervisor who was African American, and she often had to supervise, obviously, other people who worked there who were African American. If she disciplined anyone who was of her race, they often accused her of being white. She was doing her job. She wasn't doing anything. She was just being a person doing her job. But that's where I have a problem sometimes.
Exactly, because you have to see it from the perspective of the black person that's being reprimanded. Who reprimanded when we came to this country all the time? White people. They used to beat us. They raped us. They would do whatever they want to our bodies.
But they almost segregated her. Like she was someone
because
different.
She didn't come to them. I used to be in management. So I learned from being in management, you have to come at people with respect. Yes, you're doing a job for me, but I don't own you. I can't just tell you to do something and then you just do it. Yes, I'm paying for it, but if I come into with you with respect, I will have you in the palm of my hand and we'll have a much better situation than me coming at you.
I actually watched her and observed her, and I thought she was very respectful with everyone she communicated
you may have
with.
seen that, but obviously you're not a black person, so you're not feeling what they're feeling. Me being a black person, I know exactly
I understand what you're saying by their feeling,
but that's important.
But I actually saw her treat everyone equally. I don't
but
ever
you can't
see
do
her.
That. You have to treat people with equity. So if I have a tree,
okay, this is where we got to have a better understanding then.
So if I have a tree and I say, you know what, I'm going to give each of us a ladder that's the same level.
Okay.
But on the side of your tree, the tree is lower, it has more apples. On my side of the tree, there's less apples. Even though the ladder is the same, you have access to more apples than I do. So the equitable way of doing it is I'm going to make your ladder shorter, and then I'm going to make my ladder a little taller, so that way we both get the same amount of apples. That's an equitable way of handling. So if she handled everybody equitable, meaning that if some of the people she was supervising was single parents, if some people were in school, you deal with people individually. You don't just talk to people the same way and expecting the result you want. Because she's coming in thinking that, I'm the boss, this is what I want.
Well, it's called treat everyone the same. That's a mentality often managers have.
Correct, but I don't want to do that. That's a horrible way of managing.
See, this is something that needs to be taught then.
Correct. Like, people need to treat people the way they need to be treated. Yes, it takes more time, but it makes you a more effective leader, and people will trust you more. They'll do whatever they want because they know that by helping you, it helps them and it helps the entire organization. That's what's been going on in this country for too long. We've had people in power that feel like because they have power means that they can just do what they want. No. We saw what happened in the last administration. When this man had power, but he was treating people the way he wanted, and he treated a lot of people. Some people benefited from it, obviously, but a lot of people did not. So we have to approach people with equity, saying that I'm going to treat you the way you need to be treated so you can thrive. Because by you thriving, we all thrive.
Well, we're running out of time, but I want you to... This can be continued.
Yes,
trust me.
Definitely.
I actually enjoy these type of conversations.
I love them too.
I think it really helps.
Yeah, it does. Especially when it's a white guy and a black guy having this conversation. Because if it's two black guys talking
now
about...
Now that you're pointing that out.
But we have to, though. That's what I'm talking. If we point these things that make us uncomfortable out, it makes the conversations more easy to have.
Yeah.
But we keep saying, I don't want to say that because I don't want to be viewed a certain way.
I think that's the greatest mistake we make as a society is we don't talk.
Exactly.
And we need to talk more often. We never got into what you are doing.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you talk about just a brief synopsis of what you're doing right now?
Dewah Toeque, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 6 in Las Vegas.
Okay. And where can we learn more about you?
You can learn more about me at www.toeque.com. Everything's there about me, and also all my social media is there as well.
All right. And this is your host, James Kelly, and I would like to remind everyone that this is the common thread, and we actually have more in common than we think.
Yes.
We just need to get to the bottom of who we are and why we are and what we're here for. The common thread you can listen to on allaspectsradionetwork.com, and you can learn more about us at thecommonthreadradioshow.com. So thank you for being here, and thank our listening audience. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Common Thread Radio Show. Please tell us what you think. What would you like us to discuss, or a topic you feel needs talking about? Until next time, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, we are all born innocent of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice. We only know and grow into what we are taught.